Today we're working with the Apliquick applique rods and the fabric glue sticks that are used with these products in order to make some beautiful turned applique pieces. And each of the tips on the rods have a different point to it. On the heavier, thicker rod, we've got a forked point at this end and a large turning point at the other end. And then we have the thinner rod that has a really thin turning point here, and then it has a bevel at the other end. And as we're working with these rods, I'll show you how each of these different tips are used and how handy they are when we're working with our applique. This is the applique pattern that I'm working with, and our first step is to trace the applique pattern. Using a piece of water-soluble stabilizer, I've went ahead and traced this leaf pattern, and then we're going to go ahead and cut it out using scissors. After we have our applique pattern cut out, we're going to position it face down on the batik fabric that I'm using for the leaves and stems in this applique. And using the glue stick, I'm just going to apply a dab of glue onto the back side so that it will adhere to the fabric as I'm working with it. You're going to notice that when I use the glue stick, it's yellow when it goes on, and that helps us know where we've marked with our glue stick. And then as it dries, it turns to white. So I'm going to position this onto the batik fabric, and then we're going to cut around this, leaving just a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance around the outer edges of the template. That little dab of glue just helps hold the template in place so that I can get a nice accurate cut around these edges. Our next step is going to be turning the fabric over onto the back side so that we've got a very nice, smooth, even edge to work with before we applique this down. And I'm going to take the glue stick and just apply it right here along the edge. And I'm going to start out with applying it just on one side because it does dry quickly. Using the forked tip, I'm going to use that to hold my applique piece in shape, and then using the narrow tip on the other rod, start bringing the fabric and working it towards the back. And as you can see, I'm using just a little bit of a pulling, sweeping motion here as I'm bringing this around. The glue is holding it in place, and it allows me to create really smooth edges on my applique. It takes a little bit of getting used to working with these, I will admit that. But the longer I worked with them, the more I enjoyed doing this applique. As you can see, we've created a very smooth edge here on the side of this leaf. After I get done, I've now spun the tool around in my hand so that we have the beveled edge. And I'm going to use that beveled edge just to work this fabric flat right along our glued area so that it adheres nicely. After we get one side done, then I'm going to spin it around and apply glue on the other side. And again, holding the applique in place with the forked tips, we're just going to bring this fabric forward and onto the edge. As we get down to the corners, I'm going to go ahead and ease that in and apply just a little bit more glue. Then very carefully I'm going to hold this in place and work that tip then flip over to my beveled edge and press everything down, maintaining a perfect tip here on our leaf shape. And then we'll do the same thing for the other end. As you can see, we've completed our leaf shape. Next, to do one of the flowers for our applique, I've done the same process of tracing the shape off of the pattern, cutting it out, using just a dab of the glue to adhere it to the fabric, and then have trimmed around the fabric. What I've done is actually using a batik that has a floral stamp to it, we've centered the flower onto the flower of the fabric. Next, I'm going to use the glue stick and go ahead and apply glue on just a portion of this so it doesn't dry too quickly. And because we're working with some sharper curves here, what I want to do is just snip in, not all the way to the edge, but make just a few snips around here that'll make it easier for us to turn these pieces. And just like we did with the leaf, what we're going to be doing is using the applique rod just to flip these fabric edges over, holding them in place as we're working that edge to come up with our curves. This isn't the fastest process, but it sure does create beautiful results. After we've done a section, I just flip the tool over in my hand, so now I have the beveled edge available for use, and I'm going to use it to smooth down that edge so that we've created a nice even curve here on our flowers. And we're going to continue this process working all the way around on our flowered template. After we finish turning the edges on our applique flower, we can position it in place on the background fabric, which I've got marked with just a water-soluble pen. And same with the leaf, putting it in its appropriate position here on the template. And on this particular one, I just used a machine buttonhole stitch or applique stitch to sew those in place. But as you can see, using the Apliquick rods and also the fabric glue stick allows us to achieve nice, beautiful curves on our applique that would have been challenging to get using any other method. I've really enjoyed using the Apliquick rods and the different ends that they have on them to achieve a great degree of accuracy with my applique. And the glue stick works great and even comes with its own refill, so that way you can apply just the perfect amount of glue that you need as you're doing your applique. I hope you have as much fun working with this product as I did, and I can't wait to see how gorgeous your applique turns out.